You know how people say, "You'll always remember your 21st birthday." Yeah, they weren't wrong. I'll remember mine forever. But not because of wild parties or bad decisions. Nah, I'll remember it because that was the day I realized my family didn't forget about me. They just didn't care. What's up, Reddit? I'm Logan, and this is the story of how my parents, Karen and Greg, made it crystal clear that I was nothing more than background noise in a household where my sister Chloe was the star of the show. But don't worry, this isn't just a sad tale of birthday blues. This is about how I took that betrayal, flipped the script, and walked away from people who thought I'd stick around no matter how many times they shoved me aside. Let's set the stage. Growing up, I always knew Chloe was the favorite. I mean, it wasn't subtle. If life were a TV show, Chloe was the lead actress with her name in lights, and I was somewhere in the credits under supporting character number 3. Chloe got praise for barely passing a math test. I got silence for bringing home straight A's. Chloe wanted a car at 16. Boom, brand new. I needed a laptop for school. Use the family computer, Logan. But hey, I told myself it was normal. Every family has a favorite, right? I figured once I hit adulthood, things would balance out. Spoiler, they didn't. Now, fast forward to my 21st birthday, the big milestone. The one where you're finally legal, supposed to celebrate with friends, family, maybe a drink or two. Karen and Greg had always made a big deal about birthdays. For Chloe, at least. Every year was like a mini wedding, decorations, cakes, parties, social media posts gushing about how proud they were. So, when my 21st was coming up, I thought, finally, maybe this year, I'd get a little bit of that spotlight. A family dinner, a cake, hell, even a happy birthday text would have been nice. The morning of my birthday, I woke up to nothing. No messages. No. Come downstairs for breakfast. Just radio silence. At first, I figured they were planning some surprise. You know, maybe they were trying to be sneaky about it. Hours passed. By noon, I was sitting alone in my room, scrolling through my phone, waiting for something. Finally, I caved and called Karen. She picked up, sounding annoyed. Logan, I'm busy. What do you need? I blinked. Just wondering where everyone is. It's my birthday. The pause on the other end told me everything I needed to know. Then came the line that would forever be burned into my brain. Oh, right. Well, we're out celebrating Chloe's promotion. We'll catch up later, okay? Catch up later. Bro, they didn't just forget my birthday. They prioritized Chloe's promotion party over it. And that's when it hit me like a slap to the face. This wasn't forgetfulness. This wasn't a mistake. This was them showing me exactly where I stood. But what they didn't realize was that it was the last time I'd ever let them treat me like a placeholder in their perfect little Chloe-centered world. After hanging up on Karen's little "we'll catch up later" line, I sat in my room just numb. It wasn't anger yet. It was that hollow feeling when reality finally slaps you hard enough that you stop making excuses for people. You know, when all those little red flags you've been ignoring suddenly turn into a full-on parade? That was me, sitting there on my 21st birthday, realizing I wasn't just forgotten. I was never even on their radar to begin with. For a minute, I stared at the ceiling like some indie movie protagonist, wondering if I was overreacting. I mean, maybe Chloe's promotion was a big deal, right? Maybe they'd make it up to me tomorrow. But nah. Deep down, I knew better. This wasn't a one-time slip-up. This was a lifetime of being second place in a race I never signed up for. So instead of wallowing, I did the smartest thing I could. I texted Sophie. Didn't even have to explain much. Just a simple, "Hey, parents bailed on my birthday. Kinda don't wanna sit here alone." She replied in seconds. "Be ready in 20. We're fixing this." 20 minutes later, Sophie pulled up outside like some kind of birthday rescue squad. No dramatic speeches, no pity, just a kiss on the cheek and a firm "let's go." We headed straight to her place, and bro, the second I walked through that door, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: welcome. Her parents, Robert and Linda, didn't ask questions like, "What did you do to upset them?" or, "Are you sure they didn't have a reason?" Nope. They took one look at me, realized what kind of day I was having, and immediately shifted into, "Let's fix this." Mode. Robert clapped me on the back. Heard someone's turning 21 today. That calls for a celebration. Linda was already in the kitchen, pulling out whatever she could find, chips, burgers, even a half-eaten cake from the fridge. Within an hour, they'd cobbled together a better birthday than Karen and Greg had ever managed in my entire life. It wasn't flashy, no Instagram-perfect decorations, no expensive gifts, but for once, I wasn't sitting at a table feeling invisible. I was laughing, eating, existing without feeling like an afterthought. At one point, Robert handed me a beer and said, "You know, Logan, milestones like this aren't about fancy parties. They're about who's standing next to you when it counts." Man, that hit harder than it should have. Because while Karen and Greg were out clinking glasses to celebrate Chloe's latest achievement, which, let's be honest, was probably just her getting a new title without actually doing more work, I was surrounded by people who chose to be there for me. Sophie could see the wheels turning in my head. She nudged me and said, "Stop looking at your phone. They're not gonna call. And even if they did, do you really want to answer?" She was right. I'd spent years glued to that phone, waiting for crumbs of validation from parents who only noticed me when they needed something fixed or wanted to show off their perfect family image. But tonight wasn't about them. It was about realizing I didn't have to keep auditioning for a role in a family that had already cast me as the background character. As the night wound down, Robert pulled me aside again. "Listen, kid. You've got people in your corner now. Don't waste time chasing after those who never had your back to begin with." That stuck with me. Because it wasn't just about a missed birthday. It was about a lifetime of missed moments, skipped acknowledgments, and silent sacrifices they never cared to notice. And right there, I made a decision. I wasn't just going to move on quietly. Karen, Greg, and Chloe needed to understand that when you push someone aside long enough, they don't just fade into the background. They walk out the door and never look back. The next morning, I woke up at Sophie's place, still full from Linda's impromptu barbecue and with that weird mix of emotions you get after a night that's both heartwarming and soul-crushing. Yeah, I'd had a good time with people who cared, but that lingering bitterness? Still there. Because no matter how much I tried to shake it off, one thought kept creeping back. How do you forget your own kid's 21st birthday? And worse, how do you choose to ignore it? By noon, I checked my phone, not because I expected anything, but because I wanted to confirm what I already knew. Nothing. No text. No call. No half-hearted apology from Karen or Greg. Not even a lazy, "Hope you had a good day," from Chloe. It was like I didn't exist. Sophie caught me scrolling and raised an eyebrow. Still waiting for them to pretend they care? I shrugged, but she wasn't having it. "Logan, you can't let them keep doing this to you. You deserve better, and they deserve to hear it." Now, I'm not usually the type to stir the pot. Years of living under Karen and Greg's roof taught me that speaking up just led to, "You're being dramatic, Logan." Or, "Why can't you be more like Chloe?" But something about Sophie's words, and Robert's from the night before, lit a fire in me. Why was I still letting them get away with treating me like I was optional? So I did something I'd never done before. I called them out. I grabbed my phone, opened the family group chat, which, by the way, was 90% Chloe's selfies and Karen's passive-aggressive reminders, and typed out a message I knew would blow up the illusion they'd been comfortably living in. "Thanks for making my 21st unforgettable, not because you celebrated it, but because you proved once and for all where I stand in this family. Don't worry about rescheduling. I won't be waiting." Sent. Within minutes, the typing bubbles popped up. First came Karen. "Logan, don't be so sensitive. We were celebrating something important for your sister." Then Greg, chiming in like the corporate robot he is. "You're an adult now, son. Birthdays aren't a big deal at your age." Oh, now I'm an adult? Funny how that didn't apply when they needed me to run errands or fix Chloe's Wi-Fi last week. But the best reply? That was from Chloe, of course. "OMG, Logan, seriously? Are you really making a scene because we didn't throw you a party? Grow up." I stared at that message, equal parts furious and impressed by how effortlessly she missed the point. It wasn't about the party. It was about decency. About acknowledging your own brother's existence without needing a reminder. Sophie peeked over my shoulder, read the messages, and just said, "Block them." I hesitated, Not because I didn't want to, but because after years of playing the good son, it felt surreal. But then I thought about every birthday where Chloe got paraded around like royalty while I sat in the background. Every time Karen praised Chloe's bare minimum achievements, while ignoring mine. Every time Greg told me to be patient, because your time will come, Logan. Spoiler, it never did. So yeah, I blocked them. Group chat? Muted forever. Individual numbers? Gone. And you know what? The second I did, I felt lighter. But I wasn't done yet. Because this wasn't just about cutting contact, it was about taking control. I decided that from now on, I wasn't going to be the guy waiting for people to remember I mattered. I was going to surround myself with people who didn't need a reminder. And Karen and Greg? They could keep celebrating Chloe's every breath without me watching from the sidelines. But of course, people like them don't just let you walk away quietly. And I was about to find out how petty they could get when they realized I wasn't playing their game anymore. A few days of silence passed after I blocked Karen, Greg, and Chloe. I was finally breathing easy, no more notifications, no more fake family drama invading my peace. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. People like my parents don't just shrug and move on when their favorite punching bag grows a backbone. Nah, they regroup, strategize, and come back swinging with whatever weapon they think still works. And sure enough, it didn't take long. Out of nowhere, I got an email, because when the phone's blocked, they always find another way in. Subject line? We need to talk about the future. Classic Karen. Always dramatic, always vague enough to bait me into opening it. Curiosity won, so I clicked. And there it was, the inheritance threat. The holy grail of manipulative parenting. Karen had written this long, rambling essay about how family disagreements are normal. But my disrespectful attitude couldn't be ignored. She dropped lines like, "We've worked hard to build something for this family. Chloe has always been appreciative of our efforts. If you continue down this path, Logan, you'll be leaving us no choice but to reconsider your place in our will." Bro. I laughed out loud. Because here's the thing, they thought I'd be scared. They thought dangling some future payout would make me crawl back, apologize, and go right back to playing the quiet, obedient son who clapped every time Chloe got a participation trophy. But what Karen and Greg never understood was, I wasn't sticking around for their money. If I wanted handouts, I could have kissed up to them like Chloe did for years. But I wanted respect, not hush money disguised as family legacy. I showed Sophie the email, and she rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. Wow. They really think you care about that? Exactly. But it didn't stop there. The next day, Greg decided to have his turn. He sent me a separate email, less dramatic, more "I'm the reasonable parent" tone. You know the "let's be men and fix this" approach. Highlights included: "Son, you're overreacting. No family is perfect. Chloe has always needed more attention, that's just how she is. You shouldn't throw away your future over a minor misunderstanding." Minor misunderstanding? Bro, forgetting your kid's 21st birthday while throwing a party for your sister isn't a misunderstanding, it's a statement. Greg ended his email with, "Let's meet for coffee and sort this out like adults." Yeah, hard pass. I didn't respond to either of them. Because here's the truth. When someone threatens to cut you out of their will, thinking it's their trump card, it just proves that was the only thing they ever thought they had over you. And once you stop caring about the money, they've got nothing left. Robert summed it up perfectly when I told him about it later. Real family doesn't bribe you to stay, Logan. They make you want to stay because you're valued, not because you're waiting on a payout. That hit deep. I realized I'd been conditioned to think that someday, Karen and Greg's approval or their money would finally make all the years of neglect worth it. But standing there, surrounded by people like Sophie, Robert, and Linda, who treated me better in a year than my parents had in 2 decades, I finally understood. I didn't need their inheritance. I didn't need their validation. I was already richer than they'd ever be, because I had something they couldn't buy. Real family. Real respect. Real peace. But just when I thought they'd back off after realizing I wasn't biting, Chloe decided to pop back into my life, with a message that proved entitlement wasn't just a parent thing. It ran deep in that family tree. Just when I thought the dust was finally settling after the whole inheritance threat fiasco, my phone lit up with a notification I wasn't expecting. A message request on Instagram, from Chloe. Yeah, bro. Even after blocking her number, she found her way back, because, of course, she did. Golden children don't like loose ends, especially when those loose ends used to orbit around their ego. The message started exactly how you'd expect. Logan, can we talk? I think this has gone too far. Too far? I hadn't said a word since cutting them off. But in Chloe's world, my existing without catering to her family fantasy was a crime. Curiosity got me again, so I opened the chat. She followed up with a wall of text that honestly read like a mix between a bad PR statement and a motivational poster. Highlights included: I know Mom and Dad can be intense, but they mean well. You've always been sensitive about these things. We're family, Logan. You can't just walk away because of one bad day. One bad day? Bro, this wasn't about a single birthday. This was about years of being treated like I was just a supporting actor in the Chloe show. I stared at the message, debating whether to even respond. Part of me wanted to just block her there and then. But another part of me thought, you know what? Maybe she needs to hear it. So I typed, Chloe, this isn't about being sensitive. It's about finally realizing I don't need to stick around people who only notice me when they need someone to blame or fix their problems. She replied almost instantly, like she'd been waiting for that opening. Come on, Logan. Don't be dramatic. You know Mom and Dad always had high expectations for you because they believed in you. They just needed to focus on me more because I needed the help. There it was. The classic golden child excuse. You were fine on your own, so I deserved more attention. What Chloe didn't realize was that logic only works when the person on the receiving end doesn't wake up to how messed up it is. I fired back. Needing help doesn't mean I deserve to be ignored. And expecting more isn't an excuse for never showing up when it mattered. She left me on read for a few minutes, probably crafting her next line like a lawyer preparing a defense. Then came the guilt trip. Look, I get that you're upset. But do you really want to throw away your family over something like this? Think about holidays, future weddings, kids. You'll regret it if you cut us off. Bro, they think fear of future loneliness is enough to pull me back into their toxic circle. I laughed, shook my head, and sent one final message. I'd rather spend holidays alone than surrounded by people who only see me as an afterthought. Enjoy your spotlight, Chloe. I'm done. Then I blocked her again. I sat back, feeling that weird combo of relief and frustration. It's crazy how people raised to believe the world revolves around them genuinely think they're doing you a favor by offering a sliver of attention, as if that should erase years of being sidelined. Later that night, I told Sophie and Robert about the convo. Robert just shook his head and said, Some people only understand loyalty when you're useful to them. The second you stop playing your part, they act like you're betraying them. Exactly. But here's the thing, they weren't getting me back. Not with guilt, not with money, and definitely not with Chloe's half-baked attempt at peacekeeping. I was out for good. And while they were busy worrying about how it looked to have the black sheep son disappear, I was busy building something better. A life where I didn't have to earn my place. But before I could fully move on, there was one more moment, the final nail in the coffin, that would make me realize I didn't just escape a toxic family. I upgraded to something real. A few weeks passed after I shut down Chloe's attempt at reconciliation. And for the first time in my life, I felt something I never thought I'd associate with family drama, peace. No texts. No calls. No surprise guilt trips sliding into my inbox. It was quiet. And bro, it was beautiful. I focused on work, hung out with Sophie, and started seeing what life looked like when you weren't constantly waiting for people to remember you existed. But just when I thought things couldn't get better, Robert dropped something on me that hit harder, in a good way, than anything Greg had ever managed in 21 years. It was a Saturday afternoon, and Sophie had dragged me over for one of Linda's famous home-cooked lunches. We're talking the kind of food that makes you forget every bad decision you've ever made. Midway through devouring a plate of roast chicken, Robert cleared his throat, the universal sign for, I'm about to say something important, so put down the fork. He looked at me, serious but with that fatherly smirk he always had when he was about to drop some wisdom. Logan, I've been meaning to talk to you. Now, normally, When a parent figure says that, you brace for impact. Years of Greg's "We need to talk" speeches had trained me to expect criticism, disappointment, or a list of things I'd failed at. But Robert wasn't Greg. He continued, "I know things with your parents have been rough. And I'm not trying to replace anyone, that's not what this is about." I nodded, unsure where this was going. Then he said it. "But I want you to know, you're part of this family now. Not because you're dating Sophie. Not because you're around all the time. But because we chose you. And if you ever need anything, advice, help, someone to lean on, you don't have to think twice about calling me." Bro, I'm not gonna lie, I felt that lump in my throat creeping up fast. It wasn't some grand, cinematic moment. No violins were playing in the background. It was just a man looking me in the eye and saying exactly what I'd been craving to hear my whole life. "You belong. No strings attached." I mumbled something like, "Thanks, Robert, that means a lot." Because what do you even say when someone offers you the kind of unconditional support your own parents never gave? Sophie squeezed my hand under the table, knowing exactly what that moment meant to me. Later that day, while we were hanging out in the backyard, Robert came over and handed me a small box. Inside? A simple key. I looked at him, confused. "What's this?" He shrugged, casual as ever. "Key to the house. Figured you should have one, your family." Man, I swear, that tiny piece of metal weighed more emotionally than anything Karen and Greg had ever handed me. Because it wasn't just a key, it was trust. It was a reminder that I didn't have to perform, impress, or beg for acceptance. I told Sophie about it later, and she just smiled. "Told you. You don't need them anymore." And she was right. At that moment, I realized I hadn't just escaped a toxic household, I'd found a better version of family. One built on respect, choice, and genuine care, not blood ties and obligation. Meanwhile, I heard through mutual friends that Karen was still spinning stories about how I turned my back on them. Greg was disappointed. And Chloe was playing the victim, claiming I abandoned her. Let them talk. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even bitter. I was just done. Done chasing approval. Done hoping they'd change. Done thinking biology meant loyalty. But before I fully closed that chapter, I got one final message, a last little reminder of why walking away was the best decision I ever made. A few days after Robert handed me that key, the symbol of real family, I got a notification I didn't expect. A message request. This time? From Greg. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. You know how it is. You want to see just how far people will go when they realize their control over you is officially gone. The message was short. No guilt trip. No fake fatherly wisdom. "I hope you're happy, Logan. Just remember, you walked away from your family. Don't come back when you realize what you've lost." I stared at it for a second, then laughed. Because Greg, Karen, and Chloe, they all thought I'd regret this one day. That I'd come crawling back, begging for a seat at the table they never actually set for me. But here's the truth. I didn't walk away from family. I walked away from people who never treated me like family in the first place. I didn't lose anything. In fact, I gained more than I ever thought possible. I gained peace. I gained respect. I gained people who didn't need me to be perfect, or invisible, to love me. And most importantly, I gained freedom from the constant cycle of disappointment. I didn't reply to Greg's message. What was there to say? The silence said everything. Now holidays are spent with Sophie, Robert, and Linda, people who make room for me at the table without keeping score. My birthdays? They're not extravagant, but they're mine, surrounded by people who remember without needing a calendar reminder. Sometimes I think back to that moment on my 21st birthday, sitting alone, phone in hand, waiting for parents who were too busy celebrating Chloe's latest achievement. And I'm grateful. Grateful they showed me exactly where I stood. Because if they hadn't, I might still be sitting there today, waiting for people to care, hoping for scraps of attention from a family that only loved me when it was convenient. So here's my message to anyone stuck in that same cycle. You don't owe anyone your presence just because you shared DNA. If they treat you like an afterthought, maybe it's time to start thinking about yourself first. And now, Reddit, I'll leave you with this. What would you have done if your family ditched your milestone birthday to celebrate your sibling? Would you have forgiven them, or walked away like I did? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I know a lot of you have dealt with golden child syndrome and toxic family vibes. And remember, sometimes the best gift you can give yourself is goodbye. Catch you in the next one, Reddit. Stay smart, stay strong, and never be afraid to choose peace over people who don't appreciate you.